We're joined by our next guest on the line is Peter Khalil, Labor MP for Wills. Welcome to Saturday Magazine.
Good morning, Nevena and Janet. How are you?
We're very well, thank you. And we've really been looking forward to this chat. Overnight, Australia has said yes on the UN vote on recognising the Palestinian state. Peter, can you tell us a little bit more about this, as well as the push for full membership and whether that's gathering momentum?
Yeah, look, this has been obviously a lot of work, diplomatic work, and, I've had many conversations with Penny Wong, the Foreign Minister, and others around, this process. Obviously, following the vote that Australia voted for in December for a ceasefire, which was at the UN as well, there is this push around full membership status for Palestine at the UN. And Australia voted for that last night. I think it was like midnight or whatever it was overnight in New York. And it's really a pathway, a part of the long process for our support for a Palestinian state and a two-state solution, so that both Palestinians and Israelis can coexist peacefully together. Now, I've always, as you know, I've been on this program before. I've always been fighting for Palestinian self-determination and a Palestinian state. I'm of Egyptian background, so my family's actually had a direct involvement in this over a century, really, almost. My grandfather, way back in 1948, was in the Egyptian army, and my dad and my uncles and my mum and her family had their homes bombed in Suez during the wars in '67. So there's been a long history there. Now, Australia pushing this vote was around full membership status at the United Nations. It still has to go through the UN Security Council because this was a vote at the UN General Assembly. Australia voted yes. There were I think there was about 9 that voted no and 25. But there was about 143 countries that voted yes for this.
And so it does not give Palestinians full UN membership, but simply recognises them as qualified to join and gives more rights and privileges. So, Peter, what is your view on the change in language and comments from the US towards Israel?
Yeah, I mean, that's been happening for a while now. Obviously, President Biden has had a degree of tension with Netanyahu and that cabinet. And there's a huge disagreement with the way that they've conducted themselves. There's been, I think, justifiable criticism of Netanyahu and what they have been doing throughout the last 6 months, because we've always said, Australia and many other countries, that there is absolutely paramount to respect and protect innocent civilian lives, and obviously adhere to international law. And that hasn't, obviously, the president is pointing out that is not quite happening in the sense that there's been breaches along this during this period. So I think it's quite significant. I don't think, he's got to go, Netanyahu. I don't think he can last. I mean, the Israeli people themselves, like 80-90% of them disapprove of him and want him gone. So I don't know how long he can last politically. Yeah. And I think that's a matter for the Israeli people. I think they're going to move to an election pretty quickly. But it's really important from our perspective that we end, everyone that I speak to in my community, it's really about ending the war and the suffering, returning the hostages, and getting a durable and sustained ceasefire in place. And I've had lots of conversations with Qatari and the Egyptian ambassadors, the Palestinian, and others who've been working on this to try and get that ceasefire in place, because we want to end to the suffering. We want to increase, obviously, humanitarian aid and support for the Palestinian people, and then move, obviously, to a position of Palestinian self-determination and statehood.
Peter, on Australian foreign policy shifts, what do you think this might signal about Australian foreign policy towards Palestine with the support of this?
Well, Penny Wong made a very significant speech a few weeks back. Some of you might have seen that, where she talked about the importance of recognising a Palestinian state and coming to a point where we get real self-determination for Palestinian people. And obviously it's in the interests of the Palestinian people, it's in the interests of the Israeli people. And I think Australia should play, and I've said this quite publicly, Australia should play, and I've certainly said it to the Foreign Minister and the PM, that the Australia should play a constructive role, a substantive role in helping set up a Palestinian state and get us there. And that involves our contributions diplomatically, but also to economic reconstruction of Gaza, humanitarian assistance. It involves the political and the security transition that is necessary to set up this Palestinian state. And I think Australia should play a role, because people say, oh, well, why are we getting involved in that? It's on the other side of the world. But not only is it important to the Australian community, diaspora communities, but the broader Australian community, it's also important to generally to peace and stability in the region and globally. We've seen how such a war has impacted social cohesion across the globe. And so it is in our interest, I think, to really play a really substantive role in the creation of a Palestinian state.
Peter, just finally, before we change tack and talk gas, on the impact of extended rights, how significant do you believe these changes are for Palestine, and can these rights meaningfully impact their position or influence at the UN?
So did you say rights of Palestinians?
Yes, in the context of the vote.
Oh, the shift, yeah. So the Palestine has had a observer status at the UN. There's been several attempts to vote on full membership. They've been vetoed. But the move towards a kind of a full membership with certain rights is actually important because it allows the PA to vote on certain things in the UN like other countries. It allows them to participate in certain debates, and it gives them that kind of sense of being a member of the UN. And of course, once there is a Palestinian state and an agreement on statehood, then full membership will kick in automatically. So it's an important step forward. And look, some people have you'll hear this in the media around the place, people saying, oh, this is a reward for Hamas. Let's be really clear about this. Hamas is a proscribed terrorist organisation. This is not in their interest. They've never wanted a two-state solution. They've never wanted a secular democratic Palestinian state as part of the community of nations. That's not their goal. And so this runs right against what they want. So it's not actually in any way in their interests. So I just wanted to be clear about that because you'll hear some of this in some of the media.
It's such a challenging issue and very difficult to navigate all the way through. But just changing tack, in a week